And our next question, yeah, we got more comment. What kind of preparation or date do I need to make before engaging with buyer's agent?
What kind of preparation, in the sense that try to understand what a buyer's agent can bring onto the table. Because a lot of the times there are some buyers who come in and say they want to drive everything. They don't want the buyer's agent to be doing their process. So if someone is just being an SR sort of person, you may or may not get the right value out of it. So the way we do it is we challenge them a lot of the times. A lot of our buyers, we challenge them, say, why do you need this? And then they come back and say, like as an example, so people in Sydney, for example, I had this very recently. Someone, they came in and said, look, I want to buy something closer to the beach. Okay, that's fine. And then they go like, I want at least 4 bed, 2 bath, and 500 square meters. And it has to be 3-year-old house, nothing more, and so on. I said, yeah, absolutely, I can find that. But why do you need that big land, or why do you need 4 bed, 2 bath? And their response is, the house we are living in Sydney is only on 180 square meters. It's too small, so I want to get something bigger. So having something bigger is great, but the thing is, they're never going to move into the house. So, and with the requirements what they asked for, we are going into an area where the supply is way too high. There are 3,000 houses set to be built, and there are other buyer agents buying over there. But I said, look, I would never put my money over there. And if I'm not putting my money out there, I won't put your money as well. So we spoke about what is that you want to achieve, and then it's like, okay, like we want to talk about early retirement. Probably we had 12 years before we can start looking at retirement. So then we went back and said, look, this is not what you want to buy. These are your criteria, and based on your criteria, you want to be considering these options. So we actually end up buying a property. I think it's 2010 built or something, on 440 square meters. So we bought it at, I think, just over 850. It's renting for $825 per week. So, and this location is like, even if the market slows down, you'd still get very, very good rent on that. So you're not being affected by the market because, the parameters are so good in that market. So it's important to find the right one who challenges you and gives you the right advice, not just questions you and walks away, gives you the right advice. And it's a workshop end of the day. Like say, for example, if you're working in engineering or IT or somewhere, you bring in a consultant. You're bringing in because of the experience and knowledge what that person will bring, will come with. So if you're not letting them do the job, are you really getting the most value out of it?
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. And our next, yeah, we got plenty of comments here. So our next comment, what are the pros and cons of buying first house Victoria home buyer?
So let me put this one question back. Do you need to buy your first home right now? If it's not a burning desire to get into your first home, you probably don't need it. Maybe you can delay it and think about the rent vesting option. If you want to multiply your money in the right locations, maybe rent investing could be an option. So if you really, really need to get your first home, then we can talk about what's the advantage of doing that.
Yep. So you can definitely contact Raj Garu's Instagram page is below. And like before going to the next question, so Raj Garu is a buyer's agent. So if anyone are buying a property or if you have any questions, you can definitely contact him. He can help you in buying your house in the budget that you want, in the square meters that you are planning to buy. Our next question, is it ideal to buy a new house and land package or buy an existing home? What values do they have?
I am strictly against home and land packages. Strictly against home and land packages because one, home and land packages means that you're paying for something which you don't even know. Right? Imagine if some new company comes in and then they say, look, we are manufacturing some cars. This is how the car will look from the outside. You have to sign up with it and you will get the the car in 2 years time. And I don't believe anyone would do that, right? So if you're not willing to do that on a car which is probably $20, $30, $50,000, why would you do that on something which is worth $1 million or 800,000, whatever? And also the second thing which you want to understand is when you get a home and land package, you typically are getting into areas. Yes, of course, it's a new house, but that's where I told people that you should not get into emotion in here is because you're getting into an area where there is multiple new home and land packages coming. When there are so many new home and land packages coming, there'll be too much supply and you will never have high demand. No one will pay more money to get into your property after. So, which pretty much means like your money is stuck. And if your money is not growing in like 3, 4, 5, 10 years, what's the point of putting so much into it? So we typically invest in established properties. Yes, we have helped some of our clients buy and build properties. That's more like a dream house purchase. So they go into a already established area with all amenities, and there is no land supply. So they demolish and rebuild, or they buy a land over there and build houses. That's okay. But if you're trying to get into a home and land package where there is like heaps and heaps of land available, just I wouldn't do that at all.
So our next question: do you recommend buying a townhouse or a unit or individual house?
For me personally, individual houses any single day. I don't have any townhouses, any villas, any apartments in my portfolio, for example. And so we have done hundreds of these deals, and so I can only think of one or two where we bought. One is an apartment because that person wanted to live in there, and she felt it was safer for her to live in an apartment instead of an independent house. That's the only reason why we helped her with that. Townhouses and everything are not as bad, but it depends on the locations and the budgets and so on. So if it's an investment, mostly houses. But when we look into data right now, there are some areas where the townhouses or villas are coming up pretty well as well. So it all depends on the end goal of what you want to achieve from this property and how it can help you to get to the next one quickly. But mostly houses, yeah.
Yep. So I'm combining two comments together because it's almost same. So one guy he's asked which state is best to buy first home. So another question, what is which state good to buy investment property?
Um, like if someone is living in Melbourne, for example, because you are in Melbourne, so someone is living in Melbourne, how does buying a property in Queensland help them as a first home? It doesn't. So again, I go back to the question and saying, if you have the burning desire to buy your first home and home, first home or second home, whatever, then you have to see what you need and put it on paper and see what do I need and why do I need this house. If it's not there, go for an investment. And investment is different. There is nothing like one state is good or the other state is bad. It all depends on your budget, your requirements, and plan it and plan and go and chase the markets up, and that's where you can get. So if you're investing, gone are the days where people would invest right in the areas or the suburbs where you live. Now it's all about borderless investing. Where does my dollar go much further? That's what I see, and that's what you want to buy. Like so I like this tagline from budget. So his budget would says that drive your dollar further.
Yeah.
That's what you need to do with a property investment. Find the right place and see if your dollar is going to be like $3 in the next 3 years, 5 years in a location. Would you put it over there, or would you put in an area where your dollar stays at the dollar or goes down to 0.6, 0.8, and so on? So it's your choice of where you want to go.
Yep. And with the question for investment, which state is good?
Look, it all depends again on the investment as well, in the sense that so how much, what are your expectations with that? Say if someone comes and says, look, I'm not worried about growth, I want capital, so I want a yield because I'm struggling with cash flow. Then you pick in some areas and so on. And then if there are people who come in and say, look, I don't care about cash flow, I got enough money from my business or job or whatever, I want capital growth, that's where you want to go. Because usually markets are defined into the hot markets, warm markets, and cold markets. So each of them have got advantages and each of them have got disadvantages as well. So you have to be careful of what you're getting into. So try to understand that. I think I made a video on this a while ago. I'll try to post it back again, which I compared all these different sort of markets. And if you're getting into what's your pros and cons and how you should pick and choose where you should go into.
Yep. So our last question. So they're asking, is it good to buy a old house and renovate, or is it good to buy a brand
Me personally, older house. Again, I'm not saying that that's the only way you got to go. It comes down to the location. So if there is no land supply, if there is no more new houses coming for sale,
new?
if there is people has to fight against each other to get into the property, that's where we usually buy. And older houses is where you have that value. And a lot of the people, when they're asking for new houses, they're probably getting into new established suburbs and so on, which is not where we buy. If it's an older suburb, someone demolished and built a new house, nothing wrong with that. It's okay. But you got to understand that obviously the prices will be too high. Is it worth putting so much money in there? Is something what you have to see.
Like we got one more comment. Could you please elaborate on what rent vesting is?
All right. So rent vesting pretty much means that you continue to rent where you are living, and you start investing into properties. Say, for example, as an example, right? I would never buy I mean, at least in the current scenarios I'm talking about, things change in 5 years' time, it might be different. But I usually don't buy apartments, right? And definitely not in Melbourne CBD. But someone, say an young couple or someone single or maybe an young child or whatever, maybe staying in the city is really good for them because they can just walk and they don't have to stress about a lot of things. Just continue renting over there because it's cheaper to rent. With the same money, what you're putting, the same 500, 800, 300,000, whatever it is, go and buy a property which you can hold for a while and buy it in a way where there is the demand is high and the supply is low. And once you do that, someone else is staying in that property and they're paying the rent. In the worst case, the rent will match to your rent, but also that other property is increasing in value as well. And whenever you want to move out of the current house you're living in, you can always move to a different house. If you buy a house which you don't like later, you can't sell it away and you can't walk away. Right? And while you're renting, you're investing somewhere else. That's what rent investing is. And the advantage of that is while you're doing that, that property is increasing in value. So you can continue to live here. The same 500,000 property is probably worth 800,000 in 5 years' time.
Yep. Okay, one last question. Don't mind me asking this. Is buyer's agent expensive?
Buyer's agents are expensive, if I can put it that way. Depends how expensive and what do you see as expensive. But if you compare the cost of the main cost in purchasing a property or the biggest cost are the opportunity costs. If you miss out on the window, if you're missing out on the markets, that's the biggest cost because you're not making the most out of it. And the second biggest cost is making a mistake. Making a mistake of buying a property, I've seen people who buy a property without subject to building and test.
Yep.
So just fixing one of the major defects could be costing you thousands and thousands of dollars, and you may not be able to sell it again. Yep. Because those costs are even more expensive when you compare it to the buyer's agent cost.
Yep.
So if someone comes and says, replacing a tire is too expensive on a car, but I'll just go and buy something, which is worth like 200,000. You got to look at your numbers, right? You got to see what it is. I don't want to say that it's cheap or anything as such, but there are different kinds of buyer's agents out there.
Yep.
So you just have to be very careful. I'm not saying the cheapest is bad or the expensive is good or whatever, but you need to have the right things and you have to see what they've been doing as well.
Yep. So guys, personally, my personal recommendation, we contacted Raj when we were in a confusion. So it's better to have a conversation before you buy a house because going straight away and getting a property, I know there will be lots of loopholes which an individual don't know, which a buyer's agent know. So buyer's agent will definitely help. It's like if you have any questions, you can always contact Raj buyer's agent. That's the page. Can you tell something to the people how can they contact you?
So you can contact us through our social media pages, or you can probably reach out to me directly on my number as well, my mobile 0409 Enrich, that is 0409 367 or on our website enrichproperty.com.au.
Yeah. So you can always Google Enrich Property. You can always have them look about them on Instagram. Anyways, I'll tag their contact details after this live end of this thing. And our last question, he's asking, if we are willing to buy a property in Melbourne, will you help us?
Absolutely. So we have our team and contractors, and our connections are really, really good in Melbourne as well. And we can definitely help you out with that.
Yep. Yeah. So do contact Mr. Raj. So guys, we'll try to continue live monthly or fortnightly because today we can see a plenty number of good comments today. I was so happy because it's first time we are doing this buyer's agent live. Usually we do migration hour lives, and I'm so happy looking at people interested about houses. But as this is a half an hour live, I'm limiting to the questions, but there are plenty of questions that I need to ask. And guys, for next questions, feel free to send a message to Australia Ludo page. I can make a draft of everything, and in next live I can Raj so that he can help you with all the answers. And I got 2 to 3 comments saying thank you and saying really insightful. Thank you so much for taking time and accepting our personal request to be coming into this live.
No issues at all. Thanks for having me. And just wanted to let you know one thing. Any of the viewers, so if, so don't think that, so you can only contact me if you're wanting to buy or whatever. If you're wanting to buy your house and if you're stuck somewhere, there's nothing wrong in having a quick 2-3 minute phone call. And if it can save you some thousands of dollars or stop you from making a very big mistake, I'm happy to advise you on what you could potentially do. But obviously, there is only so much we can do without knowing your complete information, but we will do what we can.
Yep. One more last question. How much should I keep deposit to maximize gain? Is it best to rent or buy?
Look, so again, it all depends on how much your dollar can go further. Like banks say that you have to keep up to 20% without paying any LMI. But again, there are banks which offer special special loans to say doctors, lawyers, and vets, nurses. There are some banks which are even doing it for IT professionals and engineers as well. So they where they can get, so for example, doctors can get 95% loans without an LMI if it's a residential property. If they're buying a commercial property, there are some banks which might even do 100% with no LMI as well. And for engineers and doctors and so on, in usual banks or the small lenders, they're probably doing 90% with no LMI and so on. So you have to see what works for you. But also, government has given this first home grant of 5% no LMI schemes as well. You could probably take advantage of that if that works for you.
Yep. So thank you so much, guys. I'm so sorry if I missed any comment. I'm pretty sure that I read each and every comment. If I miss something, you can always contact Raj Garu through his Instagram account. So do contact them, and we both will meet you on next week's live. This is Pallavi and Mitra signing out. Thank you so much, and good.
Thank you, Palvi. Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks. Bye, guys. You
Thanks.
good.
Bye.